I'll still be a little slow adding things back in. Okay? But I've definitely added more than one letter, correct? What do we have?
We have an A, a B, and a C. Or no, and a D.
We have an A, a B, and a D. But where in the world is the B?
2x.
2x is our B?
No.
Just 2.
Just 2.
Okay.
Yeah, well, that's, I was like, where?
There's only 1 2 up there. If you just said 2, I would know it. Okay? But what do you notice about the 2 with the X? Is it still in parentheses? Yes? Okay, I agree. Our B is 2. But what in the world are we going to do about these parentheses? If I were to ask you, what is D? Are you going to tell me it's pi? Shanice was here. She knows better. We have to set the entire parentheses equal to 0. Or we can simply factor out a 2. If something is inside the parentheses, we're going to factor it out. How do you factor out a 2 so the X is by itself? What do you get? Pi over 2. So what is our D?
Negative.
Is D, is the phase shift a positive pi over 2 or a negative pi over 2? Because we're still setting it equal to 0. So X would equal negative pi over 2. Okay? That will be our D. So what's this going to look like? I still am going to answer every question. What's your amplitude? What's my period? 2 pi over B. So 2 pi over 2, which is simply what? Simply pi. What's our quarter period? Pi over 4. Do we have a vertical shift? Yes. What is it? What's our vertical shift?
We don't have it.
Okay, so it's what?
0.
0. We didn't go up. We didn't go down. And our phase shift, I think we already answered that question, is negative pi over 2. I think this is the first one that we've moved to the left. I need to scroll, but I don't want to. So I'm going to erase a little bit of my extra stuff. We've written it on the side. So our y-axis, what are we going up to? What are we going down to? Up to 3, down to negative 3. Starting with our x-axis, with our quarter period. Where are we moving? Where do we start? 0, then we move over to what? Pi over 4, then we're going to add pi over 4. Pi over 4 plus pi over 4. Pi over 2 plus pi over 4. 3 pi over 4. 3 pi over 4 plus pi over 4. Pi. Okay. Now, moving down my line of vertical shift, we're not moving up or down anymore. Phase shift. What should we do with the phase shift? How in the world are we going to change to do something with that negative pi over 2? What does that mean? It's our horizontal shift. Every single point we had of our x value, we added our phase shift to. Will that still work even though it's negative? What's 0 plus negative pi over 2? Negative pi over 2. What is pi over 4 plus negative pi over 2? I may have to go do some pi over 4 plus a negative pi over 2. What do we do? Common denominators? So what's pi over 4 minus 2 pi over 4? What? Okay, my biggest question is, what do you do with fractions? Can we add, subtract fractions? 1 minus 2? Negative 1. So do we end up at negative pi over 4? And then what is pi over 2? We're at this point. Pi over 2 plus a negative pi over 2. You see? It's 0. Three pi over 4 plus a negative pi over 2. I'm going to go ahead and make it 2 pi over 4. What's 3 pi over 4 plus, or minus, really, 2 pi over 4? Simply pi over 4. And then what is pi plus a negative pi over 2? 1 minus a half is simply pi over 2. So do we see our 5 points? Yes, ma'am.
Do you have to do all of the math to the side, or can you know that the quarter period is going to stay the same?
Yeah. I said the other day, you can add, once you get your first point, you can add your quarter period every time. It's the same thing. Either way, you're adding fractions or subtracting fractions, one way or another. Yes, sir.
And is it okay if we keep the same graph of where 0 is on there? We make that pi over, or negative pi over 2 and then work to the right?
I would rather you not.
Okay.
I would really rather you not do that.
Yes, ma'am.
Go back and move on. Okay, now we think, what type of curve is this? Sign, is it positive or is it negative? Positive, so where are we starting? Our 0 is now moved to the left. So when we go up, our first point, we're at positive 3. Our next point, we're back at 0, down to a negative 3, back up to the positive. Did we end one curve? Ooh, I'm totally not going to hit that dot. I still didn't hit that dot.
Make it
Make
bigger.
it really big.
Yeah.
Just draw a line from
Oh, I could be like you guys.
I don't do that, Miss Evans. You know good well.
That's crazy.
Craziness.
My graphs are curvy.
Yeah, Minecraft is
This is not a sine graph. And then, but it prevents me from erasing all at the same time.
Oh, that's what you get. You erase your points.
That's okay. I'd rather not have the points there. Okay. Maybe I shouldn't let us just change our y values. And that's what I'll have to do next. What if I give you, oh, how many, no, let's don't do that mean. Just early. But, no. Yeah, that's not going to turn out good anyway. Yeah. Pi's going to end up there. It shouldn't, but it does. What is the amplitude? What is the period? Can you answer all the questions? Because after Thanksgiving, we'll have a quiz, and there will probably be the first several are just questions. What is the period of? And I'll just give you an equation. What is the amplitude of? And I'll just give you an equation. What's the vertical shift of? And I'll just give you equation. So what is the amplitude of this function, this graph, Addison? 2? Is that the number before sine or cosine?
Oh no.
Ah,
It's just one because it's
absolute value of 1. See, those are tricky things I will do. Putting that C at the beginning. Okay, where it looks like it should be an amplitude. What is the period? What is the period? Taylor, you want to help me with the period? Did anybody factor out a 4? I'm going to suggest that we do that first every time. And you're left with X. X was 5 over 4. So what is our period, Taylor?
What, would it just be -5 or 4?
Oh, that's not phase shift.
Oh, just kidding.
Sorry. You want me to go ahead and put that in there? Phase shift, -5 over 4. What's the period, Emma?
Pi over 2?
Pi over 2. So did you do 2 pi over 4?
Mm-hmm.
Which is simply pi over 2. Yes. What is the quarter period? What is the quarter period? Pi over 2 divided by 4. Pi over 8. Do we have a vertical shift? What's our vertical shift, Zach? It is 2. Alright, so now we start graphing. What are we going up to? What are we going down to? Going back to purple. I start at the top and move down. So my amplitude, I'm going up to 1. I'm going down to -1. My period is only going to pi over 2, so my quarter period, pi over 8. We're starting at 0. We're adding pi over 8 plus pi over 8. 2 pi over 8, which is pi over 4. 2 pi over 8 plus pi over 8, 3 pi over 8. 3 pi over 8 plus pi over 8, 4 pi over 8, which is pi over 2. Alright. You're making me rethink my vertical shift. What if we move the entire thing up? Because you're going to see graphs. Because remember last time how we started with graphing, and then you see a graph, and then can you write the equation? Okay? They will not just mark the numbers out. They're actually going to move the graph up and down. So maybe we need to look at something like that. So vertical shift, every number I'm adding to it. So 1 should go up to what? 3. 0 should go up to 2. -1 should go up to 1. Okay? So now, even in the book, they draw this center line thing. And said that's going to be our new 0. What happens? It's all going to be shifted up. Okay? Now my phase shift, I'm going left again. I'm going negative pi over 4. So 0 plus negative pi over 4, negative pi over 4. And I realize sometimes like that's not that big of a gap. Pi over 8 is about the same gap. And then I realize I could have issues now. So if you want to do like Emma said earlier, if you want to get your starting point and add your quarter period to it, you can do that. There's nothing that says you can't. Okay? Is that going to be easier? I don't know. It depends on what you want to do. Do you want to try it? Start at your starting point and add your quarter period. So I still have to do common denominators. So negative 2 pi over 8 plus pi over 8. Still a negative pi over 8. Negative pi over 8 plus pi over 8. We're still, we come back and hit a 0. 0 plus pi over 8. Pi over 8, I can tell they're not evenly spaced. Pi over 8 plus pi over 8. Pi over 4. They're not always going to come out in a line like that so nicely like our last two have. Alright, so what is our graph going to look like? I'm going to erase just so I can see my graph a little better. I don't like to be all in. So our graph, where are we starting at? Negative pi over 8. Are we starting at 0? No, why not? It's a cosine curve, so where do we need to start? At 1 or at 3, right? Oh, or negative, so maybe we do start at 1. So it's a low curve. It's a low curve. It's going to start at the bottom. And then we go to our next important point, and we should hit our 0. The next point we should be at the top, and then we're moving back down. So it kind of curves up. So it's something like that. kept going for another period. You want? And it kind of looks like it goes. Now, what would happen if we kept going? It would come back up, it would go back over here, and it would come back down, and it would keep going. That would be 2 periods, right? Okay. Okay, not quite. I kind of drew this one when I didn't have the dot to line me up. I get a little bit over. But-
Like those farmer hats, you know? But it's like 2 of them. It's 2 of them.
Okay. Now, can I ask you a question? If you just saw this graph, would you write this equation for it?
Yeah.
Probably, maybe.
Maybe, in all honesty, if it was continuous going in both directions, like sometimes they'll do the calculator ones, and I didn't know it started right here, I would not write that equation. Because if I'm starting right here with a positive cosine curve.
Couldn't you do that though and still get the same curve?
Is it going to be the same curve? What if I said, hey, I wanted you to take this and write a sine equation? Could you do that? Or is it the same curve,
Oh man. it
just
is.
shifted over?
Oh,
Where would the
it is same
sine curve start?
3, 5, or 2, 5, 8.
A positive sine curve would start here and go down and up. What? I want you to be able to see that they call them, they're sine waves, or there's another big long word that I don't like to say, sinusoidal curves. Yeah, I don't know, it's kind of a weird word, but that's what they are. Sine and cosine, they're the exact same, there's just a translation between them. They've shifted one over to the right or left, okay? So, sometimes, if you're just asked to write an equation, they may specify they want you to write it in terms of sine or cosine. If they don't, it means there's several different equations that you could graph, or that you could write, okay? You want to have a graph and you go back and write the equation.
Yeah.
That sounds like a great idea. Mm. Okay. Yeah, they do that. See, I really don't like because they don't give enough details. They don't give the in-between points.
Is that supposed to be hitting 2?
Should it go through that 0.02? No.
Okay. Oh, okay. I see what you mean.
Nice.
Oh. Mm. I'm gonna tell you. Can I tell you a quick and easy way to find what period you've gone? If you've moved back from the 0, take that number and add it to the other side. Not the negative, but take this piece. Like, does everybody agree we've moved from negative pi over 3 to pi to 0? We've moved pi over 3, yes? So take that and add it over here. So what is our period? 6 pi over 3, which is simply 2 pi. There's not a B. We're happy, right? Or really, we could say B equals 1. What's our amplitude? 2. What type of graph is it?
Wait, so when you say add it, you mean like add the positive number?
I'm going to add the actual distance we went. Because we went this distance and then we went this distance. How far did I go total?
Oh, that makes sense.
Thank you. We're not teaching where it doesn't make sense. Okay, we have a positive sign. Do we have a vertical shift? No. Do we have a phase shift? What's our D? Positive or negative?
Negative.
So we have all of our letters. We know what type of graph it is. We know it's positive. How does that translate into an equation? Y equals, go ahead, John.
I said y equals 2 sine parentheses x plus pi over 3. Yes?
Yes. So D, even though it's a negative pi over 3, when we put it in parentheses, you've got to have that opposite sign. We're going from x equals back to the parentheses. I agree. We need another one.
Yes.
Should I add more things to it? Okay.
Is 1/3 pi the same as pi over 3?
So what?
Is 1/3 pi the same as pi over 3?
Okay. Oh, that one they didn't change. They don't give me any hard ones. Is that okay? Yeah. Oh, I'm writing where I want to be.
Yeah, you're almost
Almost.
tricking me too.
Alright, so what are some things you are thinking? What's something you have thought about this graph, Susie? What? The amplitude. Alright. So it's gone up to 3. It's gone down to what? -1. So, do we have a vertical shift in there somewhere? So does it go up and down to the same number?
No.
No. So have we shifted up or down somewhere? Alright. So what did we shift? Did we shift the whole line? Where I put the dots, which they won't always put dots there for you. But is it coming through the same line at some point in time? Do you know another way to find that center line, that vertical shift? Take your negative, take where you started, where you end, add them together, find the distance, and divide by 2. Really, you're finding the midpoint. So I went up 1 and then 3, so 4. From the very bottom to the very top, I went 4 units. Right? Technically, this is how you find your amplitude, by dividing it by 2. So we can find the amplitude starting at the top. So from -1 to 3, we get 4 units. We divide that in half, we get what? 2. So from wherever we started, wherever our center line is, we go up 2 and we go down 2. You were right with the amplitude being 2. Okay. Now, different ways. Sometimes I can you just see it, or you can use your amplitude and say, well, from the bottom, what's my shift? Or no, from where I should be, from the 0 line, how much did I go up? What should be my C? What did we start from our 0 line? How many do we go up to get to our center line? Or take our amplitude and subtract it from the top. We get to 1. Or take our bottom amplitude and add our amplitude to it to get from the bottom. So where are we? What is the center line? What is our vertical shift? We simply moved it all up 1. Did you do the same thing with the period that I told you before? This lesson, they did not add all 4 things together. So they didn't change the period on any of them. So if you take this distance, add it to that, what do we get? What's our period? 4 pi over 2, which is simply 2 pi. So our B is just 1. What about our D? What's our phase shift? -pi over 2. What type of function is it? Cosine. Yes, because we didn't start at 0, 0. Is it positive or is it negative? Negative cosine curve. So what is our equation? Okay.
That's what I thought.
2 cosine. Oh, it's going to be the opposite.
Do you care if we do the 1 at the end? So like +1?
+1 is it, but if you do the negative, yep, that's fine. Because the C can be any place. All right, have a great day.